Welcome back for another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. I am your host, Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG Family Legal and Mediation Services. We're your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys, and we help spouses divorce with civility, creating a legacy for those they love most. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And today I have my friend and esteemed colleague, Mark Astor. He is the guru of mental health as an attorney. Before we get into our conversation today, Mark, thank you so much, first and foremost, for joining me.
Well, I'm so happy to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you since we had lunch a while ago.
I know.
And you have turned into this wonderful entrepreneurial lawyer. I love it.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you. Love doing this. Love helping people. So for those of you out there who are listening in, just a brief bio on Mark. He is an attorney. He's been an attorney since 1994. I know he looks very young.
Yes, I don't always feel that young, but I appreciate the compliment, Kristen.
He was born and raised, listen to this, in the UK, and he began his legal career as a Palm Beach County Assistant State Attorney. Before entering private practice, he served as chief of 2 county court divisions and later worked in a felony trial division, handling thousands of cases from misdemeanors to capital murder. He was admitted into the Florida bar in 1994, and he later gained admission to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida in 95, the District of Columbia bar in 2005, and the Massachusetts bar in 2022, where he opened a Boston office. I want to be like you when I grow up, Mark. Good gracious. So many designations. He holds a BA from the University of Michigan in 1990, a JD from Nova Southeastern University in 1994, and an LLM from American University in 2005. In 2016, he founded Drug and Alcohol Attorneys, a service for individuals and families affected by substance abuse and mental health disorders. And in 2017, he co-founded Astor Law with his wife, Audra. She's amazing. He's a firm dedicated to saving families whose loved ones are suffering from substance abuse, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. In 2020, he founded Baker Act Attorneys, advocating for individuals wrongfully detained in the state of Florida's mental health system. He has successfully litigated against hospitals and facilities violating rights under the statute and is known for his relentless commitment to securing releases day or night. Outside of law, he teaches, not that he hasn't, time on his hands, but he teaches Krav Maga and maintains a fitness routine, believing that physical health fosters mental well-being. OMG, Mark.
Wow.
This is amazing. Amazing.
I can't believe
You're
it's
amazing.
Me, but apparently it's been a bit of a journey. So.
Yes. Walk us through that journey. I always say that we oftentimes have a story, right? And we do what we do because we love what we do, but there's a story behind it. So I'm just so curious as to what is your why and what is your story?
Yeah, so in 1993, when I was still in law school down here at Nova, I got a chance to intern at the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. I can't tell you I was really that passionate about the law. I was probably in the top half of my law school class, which means I was about halfway down the bottom as well, I guess, right? So I wasn't really that into the whole law school thing. But I got an opportunity to intern, and as an intern, you can basically do everything the lawyers do, except for filing charges, which means you can't sign an information, and you can't drop a case. So you can't sign what's called a null pros, which is the document that tells the clerk we're dropping the case. Mm-hmm. But everything else you can do. And I knew 5 minutes into my first real trial, I said, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And as an intern, I tried a dozen jury trials. I also did an appellate argument, which had, they'd never seen. I was a machine. They'd never had an intern who was like, give me the case, I'll go try it. And I really found my passion for trying cases. And they ended up hiring me about a month before I graduated law school. And I still have my CLI certification, so I went right back to school. So for the first month I was working, studying for the bar at night. I took 3 weeks off, studied, crammed for the Florida bar, and went right back to work. And then, was it 6-8 weeks later they tell you,
yeah, hey, that's daunting.
Yeah, it's not a good time where you try to forget about it. But So they told me I'd passed, so I was like, great. And I was there for 5 years. And it was interesting, especially when you're out of law school, you're a prosecutor, right? You are full of piss and vinegar, right? You like, I'm going to lock them all up, right? And that was sort of my motive, right? But what I noticed pretty quickly was that there was something a little bit off with the system. And what I mean by that was I was starting to see the same faces over and over again. But back in the 90s, we didn't have some of the diversionary courts that we have now. No drug court, no mental health court, no veterans court. And, the legislative intent, even today in the criminal system, is to punish first and rehabilitate second. So if you've got nowhere else to put people but lock them up, and, they keep coming back, eventually that's what happens. You just lock them up, right? And then they get out, and then the cycle continues. And while I was a prosecutor, and I got moved into a felony trial division, the legislative passed what's known as the punishment code. And it's called the punishment code for a very good reason. It's because it gives a judge, even on a first felony offense, the lawful authority to max somebody out. But before we'd have a range, high, low. And it would tell the judge, here's the maximum you can give, here's the minimum. If you go below or above, you better, it has to be in writing. Why did you do that? Not anymore, right? There's a floor, but there's a floor, but there's no ceiling. You just max somebody out. So the legislature got really serious about locking people up. So anyway, in 1999, I left. The last year and a half when I was in a felony trial division, I was in trial every single week. So that meant if I was in trial during the week, I was prepping at night. If I had a trial starting on Monday, I'd have to prep on the weekend. So after about 18 months of that, I was done. In 18 months, I tried 50 felony cases. I tried 150 misdemeanors. I was always in trial. I loved it. But after a while, it took its toll on me, and I was done. And I left. And I think in retrospect, that was a mistake, because they'd asked me if I wanted to be the chief of one of the satellite offices, which would have meant not being in a trial division, and it would have been a really sweetheart spot. And I said, nah, I'm going to go make more money. And that was a mistake. I wish I hadn't have done that, because what happened was I left, and I really lost my passion for the law. And I think when I look back, what I loved about it was I always felt like I was trying to help somebody. If you've got the victim of a violent crime or the family of a decedent, you can't unring that bell, but you can give them some closure, some justice. And that, to me, was an irreplaceable feeling. It really motivated me, even though the first 2 years out of law school, I was living at home with my parents because I had no, pay that well, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't do it for the pay. I did it for the experience. Yeah. And so I got married at 34. I was divorced at 35. In 2004, I took a year off. I actually moved to D.C. where I got my LLM. But I also worked on a presidential campaign for a whole year. I started off as a volunteer and ended up part of the legal team that was monitoring the election, and I was part of the advance team. So especially for the last 3 months, I was always with either the presidential candidate or the vice presidential candidate. But needless to say, the candidate I worked for didn't win. So, one of the reasons to work on a presidential campaign is because you hope you get a job out of it. So I figured, well, I'm a lawyer. I'm going to get my LLM. Should be good to go. Well, my candidate didn't win, so I had to come on home. And I was pretty darn miserable, to be honest with you. And I tried very hard not to practice law because it didn't really give me any pleasure. And I probably wasted a lot of my money on fast cars and fast women. Ironic that our two guests before us, right, were in the divorce universe.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like a drug. When you go buy a new car, or you meet or you start dating somebody new, you get that high, right? But then you also get the low.
Yeah.
And I was, I go from high to low, and it was an ongoing cycle in my life. I couldn't really find any focus. So in 2010, I took what I had left from the 2008 crash, and I ran off to California. I had a cousin there, and I was like, well, why not? So I ran off to California, and I had a good friend of mine. So when I was prosecutor in Palm Beach, he was a public defender in Dade. And he said to me, why don't you I'm going to take the California bar. This will be my third time taking it. Why don't you take it? We'll open up a criminal defense practice, and we'll clean up. We'll make a fortune. So I took it for the first time. While he was taking it for the third time, he passed, and I failed. I took it a second time, and I failed it again. So after 3 years there, I ran out of money. I had to come home. So I came back to Florida. I studied for the California bar a third time. I flew back to take it, and this time I got within a percentage point, but I failed it again. So I'd spent almost an entire year studying for the California bar and didn't pass it. And I was like, I don't understand. I studied full-time for the Florida bar for 3 weeks, right? And And friends and family kept saying to me, you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. And then I met somebody that basically changed the entire course of my life. So I know that we both know Arjun Robbins, because we're both members of How to Manage a Small Law Firm. But so here's how I ended up meeting Arjun. I mean, I was back in Florida, really nothing going on personally, nothing going on professionally. I was pretty much broke. And so I called a friend of mine from law school just to see what he was doing. And I said, Richard, what's going on with you? He said, well, I've got my practice and, I'm doing tickets and criminal defense work. He's like, you ever heard of a guy called Arjun Robbins? I said, never heard of him. He said, well, next Tuesday he's doing this breakfast presentation down in the Gables. You should go. I'm like, listen, I live in Boca. This thing's at 7:30 in the morning. I'll have to get up at 4 in the morning to go. I'm not doing it. And I just left it at that. But I have to tell you, Kristen, for like 3 days, I had this nagging feeling that I needed to go. And I can't explain to you any other way than just something here in the pit of my stomach said, you got to go, you got to go. So I did. I went. And I watched him talk to about 20 lawyers about the business side of being a lawyer, which we both now know is not something they teach any lawyer anywhere in the U.S. I don't care if you went to Harvard. They do not teach you the business side of being a lawyer, which is why a lot of lawyers, us included, really struggle to grow our business. And I watched them talk about, being an entrepreneurial lawyer. And that really resonated with me. See, my dad had left school at 14 and my mother 16. And when they met, they didn't have two nickels to rub together. But my father was an entrepreneur and he built businesses. Some worked, some didn't. Some made a lot of money, and some he lost his ass on. So I really related to that business thing. And long story short is, after he got done talking, I begged him for a job. And I interviewed with him, and they hired me. And so I spent the whole year working for How to Manage. I was their internal dragon. And I can't tell you I was that good at it, but I watched everything. I was on all the calls with all the members. I went to all the live quarterly meetings. I was involved because they do a lot of internal training. I mean, they practice what they preach. And I spent a whole year there learning about being an entrepreneurial lawyer. But you see, what I didn't realize when I went to work there is that How to Manage, at its very core, is a personal growth company for lawyers. And they believe that financial growth has to be preceded by personal growth. And I realized two very important things during that time there. Number one, I failed to take 100% responsibility for my life, both personally and professionally. The reason I wasn't making any money is because, well, I hadn't tried to make any money. Number two, the reason I had nobody special in my life is because I was bouncing from one relationship to the other that was never going to work with somebody I was not compatible with. But, some of these women had some of the, attributes that the material man would be attracted to. And I'll leave it at that. So I hadn't taken 100% responsibility for my life. The other thing that I realized was I wasn't helping anybody. I didn't have a focus on helping anybody. And I had close family members and friends who had behavioral health issues, and so I said, I'm going to help those people. So in February of 2016, I sat down in the local library in Boca on Spanish River Boulevard. They had free Wi-Fi and reasonably decent coffee.
Great library.
It is a great library, because I was broke. I had no money. But I was very, very focused and very driven. And I created a spreadsheet on my laptop of all the people I know. Now, I hadn't practiced law in 5 years. I hadn't even lived in the state in 3. And I just started smiling and darling. I called everybody that would listen to me. I would make coffee appointments, lunch, anybody that would listen to what I had to say, I would talk to. And I ran around to treatment centers probably for 2 or 3 months, handing out my business card because nobody had heard of me. And the first year, it actually took 14 months before anybody called me with a behavioral health case. So that year, I took criminal cases. I think the very first case I had was a student athlete at a university here in Florida who got himself in a little bit of hot water with a female student. I took some family law cases, which I co-counseled with a friend of mine from law school who had a family law practice. And I was able to get a little office, which ironically, we still have that address. I don't use it much now because we're virtual. But that first year, the firm did $75,000, which I don't know if that's a lot of money to you, but for me, it was an enormous sum of money because I was broke. And 11 months in, I also lost my dad. So I had to find the funds to pay for a funeral too. So it was a very trying time. And 2 days after I buried him, I had a family member who who basically fell off the wagon and got sucked into Florida's mental health system. So that was a very close and personal experience with the Baker Act. which, as you mentioned, has become a bit of a mission of mine. And 2017, I met my now wife.
Yeah.
So that part of my life took a little bit longer to take responsibility for. And I think we sort of discussed off camera. We're now, January will be my second wedding anniversary. So my second wife, but I married her for, not that she doesn't have many of the attributes the material man can appreciate, but she has the other qualities that I think that we need, right? She's my best friend. She's the person I trust the most, which is why she pretty much runs the business and I'm just, out there running my mouth.
I love it.
Right? Because I trust her, and she's better at it than me. And she's a better lawyer than me. So I trust her when we have an issue in the firm that we need to discuss. I value her opinion. It's important to me because a lot of the time she's right and I'm not, right?
Say that again.
Yeah, I've had to. You know what's funny, Kristen? Whenever it comes to important decisions, she'll remind me. She'll say, I'm typically right and you're wrong. And I'm like, she's right about that too. Okay, what do you think, Audrey? So I will ask her. And really for the next couple of years, actually for the next 6 years, it was just the two of us. Really, in the last 2.5 years, we've hired staff, so now we're a team of 14. But
I love it.
It's been a real grind. And we talked about what happened last year, where I had to either people resigned and left us, holding the baby, or I had to fire people because they just weren't doing their job, they weren't buying into our mission and core values of the firm. But we've had our best year ever. We've helped a lot of people, and I have a lot of plans for next year. There's a lot more people that need our help, and we're going to do that.
I believe you will.
So
tell the audience what it is that you do, because Mark, everyone out there, Mark, and I will say this again, you're the mental health guru attorney. And I don't know if this is cliche or not. I think in 2025, going into 2026, it's getting better as far as people realizing that not only that mental health exists, right? Like we all have mental health is a thing, but like how you deal with mental health, it could be positive, it could be negative. And we need to talk about this. This is something that most people don't talk about, including in my family. There, mental health issues going on there that nobody wanted to talk about, want to brush it under the rug. But I see this a lot dealing with family law and how it can tear families apart. It could tear children apart. And so I'm saying this not just to be saying it. What Mark does, everyone, is extremely essential, and people really, really need it, and we need you. So please explain.
We need you too, though. Having gone through a divorce, trust me, we need you.
Explain what it is that you do.
So the mission of the firm is to save families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. So we are talking to families from all over the country, as far west as Hawaii, the New England corridor, occasionally from outside of the country. And it's usually mums and dads that call us. Not always, but most of the time. And they call us because somebody in the family, typically an adult child, has a long history of drug use and mental illness and treatment that doesn't work. They're probably med non-compliant. They may well have been a guest of the state, either through the criminal system or the mental health system, maybe even an overdose. And they call us and say, we can't take it anymore. This has been going on for a long time, 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even longer. We heard you might be able to help. And so that's what we do. And there's really three components to it. So as lawyers, obviously the first thing, our responsibility is the legal side of things. So there are 3 statutes here in the state of Florida that allow us to give families varying degrees of control. For instance, maybe we just want an order to send somebody to treatment, but maybe we also want access to their medical records. Maybe we want authority to make sure they take their medications. We want to control their resources and finance. We might want to restrict their ability to travel. We might want to take away their driver's license. It just depends what the family needs, what their requirements are, and so we can sort of tailor it to what the family is looking for. So obviously the legal side of things is what gets things moving in the right direction. And we're really using the court system, the judicial system, to give families some control over what is typically a very out of control situation. And you're dealing with somebody in the middle here who's not only in complete denial, they don't think there's anything wrong with them. They think their mums and dad, they're like, our parents are crazy, they need to go see a psychiatrist, right? It's as if their brain was kidnapped, right? It looks like them, sounds like them, walks like them, but it ain't them. That's not what's running the show here. Whatever's going on up here, substance use, mental illness, usually both together, that's what's running the show. And as such, it's going to fight like hell not to go to treatment, because that is sort of that's the treatment, that's the cure for the issue.
The missing link, because you mentioned earlier in your career, you saw a pattern of people who were committing crimes, but they just kept coming to court. And I'm thinking that mental health, that was part of the missing link.
It was, and I'll talk about, how things changed in the practice over the last almost 10 years now. But so the legal is important. Clinical is obviously, that's where the magic happens, right? That's where the miracle happens. So a lot of the time we'll get a call either from an interventionist or a clinician or a treatment center, and they're working with the family. Great, we have the clinical component set up because it's not just a matter of getting somebody into treatment, but they have to stay long enough in a clinically appropriate facility. But maybe they don't have that lined up. So I have 2 clinicians on staff. One's a forensic psychologist, the other one is a licensed clinical social worker, and they can hire, our people to come in and not just case manage, but find the right place for them. So that's important. And then the third component is what I call law enforcement. So I have a retired cop on staff with a team of investigators. So
That's awesome.
I sort of modeled it after my time at the state attorney's office, because when I was prosecutor, we had our own, we used to call it investigations, but they're basically an internal police force that could do everything the cops can do, right? They can arrest people, they can execute search warrants, all of that stuff. And I was like, I'd like to have that. But so we use them when people go missing, or they're out in the streets, or they walk out of treatment. And if I can get a judge to give us a pickup order, great. Now we call law enforcement in, and we can take custody of the person and get them somewhere safe. So clinical is key and critical, and law enforcement, and then obviously the legal component. So we find these three things together get the job done. But look, recovery is a journey. It's not a destination. And I tell families, think of this as a year-long journey. You don't have to hire us for a year, although if we're filing for guardianship, we're typically in the case for a year because, once you file your appearance, you're in, right? And you can't just, we don't get to walk away. It's got to be the judge telling us, okay, you're done, right? And so it takes time for someone to experience recovery. It really does. But in the grand scheme of things, if this has been going on for 10 years and you can fix this in a year and for the rest of everybody's life, the family unit is repaired, and we really encourage the family to go work on themselves too.
Yeah.
Then that's when the miracle happens, and it's very satisfying in it. And I enjoy, I enjoy it as much as I enjoy doing the legal work, getting that feeling back that I had when I was prosecutor. I think I enjoy building the business maybe even a bit more because then I know we're helping more people. And that's a lot of fun. But the dynamics have changed. When I first started doing this in February of 16, my focus was on alcohol and recreational drug use. Now, most of our cases are driven by very clinically challenging mental illness. And 2 things caused that shift. One, COVID. People really struggled. People that had never had issues started to have issues. And they were showing up at hospitals and calling 211 and 911 and getting sucked into Florida's broken, draconian mental health system. And then the legalization of marijuana. That has been an unmitigated disaster as far as mental health is concerned. Because that stuff, as a child of the 80s who had a lot of friends who smoked marijuana, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. I was very wrong. It is a very big deal. And I think that the number one crisis that we may be facing as a country is mental health, fueled by some of this very high potency, dangerous marijuana. It's dangerous stuff. And if I was a parent, I would not let my kids, anybody under 25, touch it. It will damage your brain permanently. Wow. So
that's a good point you bring out in regards to mental health, because it's this new thing. There's always something, right? The world is always evolving for the good or for the bad. The new thing now amongst especially teenagers and having access to social media is like encouraging them to commit suicide. Is there anything that you want to speak to in regards to that and what you do in your industry?
It's interesting, and now there's been a couple of cases where ChatGPT has been involved in coaching.
Oh.
So there's a couple of lawsuits now pending where you'd have a teenager who felt like his or her best friend was ChatGPT, and basically the AI coached the person on how to commit suicide, right? And so what I tell parents is be really nosy about what's going on in your kid's life. Really, look, mums know when something's going on. And it's funny, I've spoken to probably a couple thousand mums at this point in time. My wife always jokes I make them cry. I don't try to make them cry, but when you have an honest conversation with somebody, it's emotional. It is emotional. And when I say to them, well, how do you know your loved one's having an issue? They tell me, I just know. right? Mothers have an amazing internal instinct, and they do just know. But it may be subconsciously that they notice little things, right? They're become aloof. Their friends have changed. They're sleeping during the day and they're up all night. Their grades have started to suffer. They can't hold down a job. They can't maintain any type of committed monogamous relationship, right? They've lost weight. Their eating habits have changed. They no longer bathe on a regular basis, right? Their life has just taken a shift, not for the better. And so I tell parents, when you start to see those things, find out what's going on. Ask them. Look for signs. Are you finding, pills or weed or something in the house? And don't let them use that stuff, right? Especially the marijuana. The idea that it's legal and it's safe is bullshit. It's not safe. Okay, I don't care if they have a card. It's not safe. And it will damage them permanently, and it will cause, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. It can and does cause mental health issues, big time. Severe paranoia, delusions, schizophrenia, all kinds of crazy stuff that was not there before. So be nosy, right? And if your kids don't like it, too damn bad, right? Yeah. Because, when I think about how many stupid decisions I made as a teenager, right? We've probably all made, right? They just don't have the life experience to know they're making stupid decisions. And as I tell parents, once the proverbial ball gets so far down the field, and you need to intervene, then it's a matter of who's going to do it. Is it going to be mom and dad, or is it going to be the state, right? Because we have this mental health system here in Florida, which is the Baker Act, and at some point, if you keep getting somebody, it's a bit like the criminal system. If you keep getting sucked into the mental health system, eventually they'll just lock you up. And so I tell families, look, you want to try and nip this in the bud, because unless something tragic happens, and I get those calls too, where a family called us and said they weren't ready to move forward, and then we touch base with them 6 months later and find out somebody died.
Yeah.
I tell them, listen, if you don't make the decision to save them, the state will do it for you, either through the criminal system or the mental health system. And I promise you won't like that, because it will effectively terminate your legal rights, right? And it will give it to the state, who will become their new mother and father, and they will be calling the shots. And that's not a good place to be. So I get it. No parent wants to be in an adversarial position with their adult child. But at some point, somebody has to make the decision to save them, because they can't make it. They don't even think there's anything wrong with them. So who's going to make that commitment?
Speaking of commitments, can you share with the audience a happy client story where your services, I know we have a lot of parents out there, they probably have a lot of questions, where do I begin? But when they took the step to make that call to your office and it turned out positively, can you share that story?
So we get two different types of happy client, because there's now two halves of the practice.
Okay.
During COVID, when people were getting Baker Acted left and right, and I started getting calls from other lawyers, I had a client that was Baker Acted, I got a family member, can you get him out? So fast forward to 2000 and almost 26, I probably file maybe 200 habeas petitions every year all over the state to get people out. Yeah. And we're really good at them. When I first started doing them, because the facilities didn't know who I was, I was running all over the state litigating these cases, and after doing about a dozen hearings and wiping the floor with most of the doctors, they decided they didn't want to trifle with me anymore and got tired of having their hat handed to them. So we're able to get most of these people out pretty quickly, but still we get a new facility that wants to fight. So those, we do a lot of those, and those clients are thrilled, because they've basically fallen into a black hole and nobody knows they're there. So getting those people out is really, I can't tell how much I enjoy that, because it happened to my family member and I was there when it happened. So I love that. Gives me tremendous personal satisfaction, kicking the state's butt when they do it wrong. When they do it right, I'm fine, but they do it wrong a lot. And there's just a cluster of facilities in Florida who consistently do it wrong over and over again, because it's a cash cow and they're making money from this. So I get those very happy clients. The other kinds of happy clients are where they come to us, where they've had somebody in the family with a lot of this involves marijuana, where there's just severe mental illness. And a lot of these, adult children, they're like mad scientists. They're brilliant, but they're living in a different universe, right? They're sort of unplugged from the matrix, as it were. So those kinds of cases where we've got somebody who's done 3 to 6 months of treatment, and they're taking their medications and they're slowly starting to come back. It's like the child's reborn, right? All of a sudden, wow, he came back, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the cases that we see a lot of and get tremendous results from. But, there's no, instant gratification with recovery. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's not 30 days and they're done forever. No, it's 6 months of treatment plus a continuum of care for another 6 months, mm-hmm. and then they have to continue to work on their recovery forever. Mm-hmm. It's like any disease. You are in remission, you are in recovery, mm-hmm. but it's always there. Mm-hmm. It's always there. So those are the kinds of cases we see a lot of, and those are really satisfying.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, I really enjoy it. I love it. I love what we do. Our clients are very emotional, but look, you do divorce, you do family work.
And we need, because there's a huge crossover.
There really is.
Yeah.
So, our typical client's mom and dad, but sometimes we'll get spouses calling us or ex-spouses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're in the middle of a divorce and they're getting divorced, and, dad might call and say, listen, mom has an alcohol problem.
Or temporary custody. I do a lot of those, well, not a lot, but I've done quite a few, where a parent, unfortunately is not all there. And it's not safe for the children to be with that particular individual. So what you do definitely has a crossover.
100%.
And I liked what you said. It's not, just overnight. And working with the courts, working with the professional and an expert like you to explain, okay, because it's like, okay, what is going to be the plan right now? Okay, it could be the plan right now, but let's come back in 3 months. Let's come back in 6 months to make sure that we're not coming back here. We don't want to go backwards 10 steps. So I love that you love what you do, and I think that, definitely the crossover.
I think back to my own divorce when I got divorced when I was 35, and I only had a short-term marriage. It was a year. I couldn't wait to get divorced. It was very clear very quickly that it was not going to work. Mm-hmm. And after we separated, she did everything she could to make me completely miserable. So I couldn't sign the divorce documents quick enough. But I'll tell you, I thought I'd be happy as Larry. Turned out that wasn't the case. I was devastated. I think for the first 3 days that I got divorced, after I got divorced, I couldn't get out of bed. And it took me, I think one of the reasons I went on this journey was I was trying to find some purpose, some focus. And I think that's what my journey was really all about, is finding a mission. Because after I got divorced, I said, am I really happy? And I was like, no, I'm miserable. I don't even think I think I was miserable when I was married. And that wasn't my ex-wife's fault. That was me. All right, I didn't have any purpose. I mean, I was making a lot more money, but I was pretty darn miserable. So, I mean, I had to accept I had to accept a lot of the responsibility for the failed marriage, right? Yeah. I probably had no business getting married. And obviously she was devastated too. And I can't say my ex-in-laws were particularly thrilled either. So, and my parents were devastated too.
Yeah.
So I had this fairy tale wedding, and, a year later it was all up in smoke. And I think, going back to school and working on the campaign and all of that stuff was about finding some focus, something to motivate me, to drive me to do better, right, and to help people. So that chance encounter with R. John Robbins. Yeah. Right? And
it was meant to be.
Well, here's the irony. So we met. Here's how we ended up meeting because I know for provisors, but so after I left, I didn't, when was it? So I've been married almost 2 years now. About 2 months before I was due to get married, somebody from How to Manage sent me the book. Is it Profit First? About getting control of your finances?
Yes.
And for that week, my wife and I, we read the book. Every night we'd read it in bed before we went to sleep. And I said, wow. I don't know if we have that. Do we have financial controls? We're making a lot of money. It seems like we are.
Yeah.
We didn't have financial controls. And my wife literally for 9 years had heard me wax poetic about How to Manage and specifically Arjon. And I'd been following him online. I was following him on YouTube. I was still getting the emails from HTM. And I said, why don't we take a look at this? She said, okay. So I spoke to Tanya. She said, look, I know you're familiar with how this works, but your wife isn't. Why don't you come for a whole weekend? You don't need to do the discovery day. Come to an LQM. And so this is what happened. We got married on the 6th of January, and so that was a Saturday. Was it the Monday? I think it was the Monday. We jumped on a cruise for a week. The boat docked on the following Friday, we took like an Uber from the dock in Fort Lauderdale to Fort Lauderdale Airport, and we jumped on a plane and flew west to California because the LQM was in Anaheim.
Okay.
So we went right off our honeymoon right to an LQM. We didn't even go home, and so I got to see Archon. I hadn't seen him in probably 9-10 years, and he was very gracious. I said, "I'm back, baby," and so obviously we did the full day on Saturday, and I think about 3/4 of the way through the day, my wife's like, "Yeah, I get it. Okay, we're in." So I said to Tanya, "We're in." And so we came back as members, and we've been back now. I guess we're halfway through our second year, and it has really, it's been a journey, but we had our best year ever, and it is, the whole business has completely evolved and changed, and, so I can actually sit here now with you, and the phone isn't, I bet it probably is still blowing up, but it's not quite as bad as it used to be.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I first started the firm, I used to cry. I used to come with a friend and say, "I can't pay my rent." And she used to be like, "Keep grinding." And now I'm like, "Oh, God, the phone does not stop ringing." Right? It's a different problem. It's a good problem to have. And I sort of say that tongue in cheek. But it's been a long journey for me to get here. Right? It's not easy to build a business, whether it's, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
So it's been, my journey has led me right here, where I'm right supposed to be with you on this podcast.
I love it.
So.
And congratulations.
Thanks.
That's what I want to say.
On the business or the second anniversary?
Both.
Because this will be my first.
Professionally and personally.
Yeah. So last year was my very first anniversary. This year will be my first second anniversary.
I love it. I love it. You all are so awesome. You're so awesome.
Thank you for having me. I love sharing my journey, but I love sharing it with you because I know that you're on a similar journey to me.
Yeah.
And I know that you're going to be wildly successful. That's the key to success. I was watching something online, and there's a quote from Rockefeller, J.D. Rockefeller, and he was like, "The key to success is perseverance."
Yeah.
Is to keep going, even when you don't feel like it, right? I use that word grit, but it's the same type of thing, right? You got to have grit because there are going to be days or weeks where business doesn't come in, all of a sudden it flies in, and you can't keep up with it, and right, you have employees that come, they promise you the world, that they can't deliver, and you have to, that's the trials and tribulations of building a business, but that's how it's done. That's how winning's done.
Absolutely. Before we close out, share with the audience where they can find out more information about you, if they have questions or if they want to learn more about you.
So if you want to find more about what we do, go online, mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com, or you can just Google me, Mark G. Astor. I think I have about 600 or 700 videos online, and you'll find me all over, YouTube, LinkedIn, Vimeo, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the typical channels. Not that I know much about any of this stuff. I just make a video and post it. But apparently it works. So, but I'm all over the internet, and that's another thing. I think it's important for us as lawyers to give as much away as we can, as much value as we can for free. This year has been really great because we had a great year, and we've been able to sort of, we've been able to sponsor a bunch of community events and various charities, and that brings a whole new level of feel good, right? About making a difference, making that little dent in the universe.
Absolutely.
Which I think as business owners is really important for us. So
keep doing what you do.
Thank
you. I appreciate you. I really do.
I do.
So that's Mark Astor, everyone. Look him up. If you have questions, he's phenomenal. Again, another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. I'm your host, Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys. We help spouses divorce with civility, creating a legacy for those they love most. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, take care.